What's going on, GameLeap? It's Coach Eeks back at it, and in today's video, top 10 top laners for 12.13, the patch that came out today. So we're going to walk you through who the best titans in the top lane are going to be for the next 2 weeks, and there were a few changes to some interesting champions this patch, whether it be from items or some direct buffs or nerfs. So we might get into these as well. But just before we do get into the video, one thing you guys have to do before you get into your next game is to download the Porofessor app linked in the description, because it allows you to quickly import the best rune page used from the best players in the world on the champion you're picking. You don't have to make the rune page, just one click of a button and bang, you're ready to go. But that's not all, because the app also allows you to scout your opponent, and the app will give you their stats, how well they play their champion, so you can know more about your opponent than they know about themselves. And the app also gives you an in-game overlay, so you can compare your CSing, your kill participation to your rank, or even challenger players like Faker. And there's a reason why 3 million people have downloaded this free application, guys. It's because it works. So get around it in Season 12. Those links are in the description. So starting us off at number 10, we have Mordekaiser, who's one of the most consistent performers in the top lane across all ranks. And because this patch nothing is changing for Mordekaiser, this is just good news. Well, maybe there was actually one change that Riot made to Demonic Embrace, where the actual passive is going to stack with your teammate's Demonic Embrace passive. So this is really the only thing that you might have to think about this patch, but ever since Riot buffed Mordekaiser's passive a few patches ago, and because this meta is all about durability, Mordekaiser loves scaling into a game, especially in the top lane if you're playing against tankier champions. It's a free lane, you get to scale, you get to the late game, and you can 1v9 in that side lane. So if you need an AP top laner, Mordekaiser is definitely a good shout. Now, beating Mordekaiser to number 9 on the countdown, well, this is Yone. Now, Yone is a bit of an interesting one, because if you blind pick Yone, if the enemy team picks something like a Riven or a Jax, you will probably come back to this video and flame me. So when you pick Yone in the top lane, what you're doing is picking him when you know the lane is going to be free. So maybe they pick some sort of tank top laner like an Ornn, for example. Yone loves to scale into a game, right? So if the lane is not going to be scary for him, he will outscale like pretty much everyone. Once you get your Q on that 1.33 second cooldown with the attack speed you get from shield bow and the level ups, and once you get to Infinity Edge, you have a very good chance of outside laning pretty much anyone you are going against. So Yone is number 9. Just be a little bit careful about picking him if you don't know who the enemy top laner is going to be. Now, beating Yone to number 8, this might be a champion who does very well against Yone. This is Shen. Because of Shen's W, he does very well against auto attack based champions. So champions like Tryndamere and Jax, Shen, because of his W, blocks a lot of their damage. Now, Shen at the moment as well has a couple of builds you can go. So on your screens, you can go the Redem Shen build, which Xpedu made popular with Chem Tank and Redemption, or you can go just Sunfire Aegis, maybe Frostfire Gauntlet. It really just depends on the matchup. I would recommend going Chem Tank and Redemption if you have a big hyper carry ADC. So yes, you're relying on your AD carry to carry you, but that's the whole point here. And you can see that in Master and above, Shen with his setup has an 80% win rate from 40 matches. That is legit OP. Just be sure as far as your runes, you're running Chief Shot, so you get more damage from your Taunt, and of course Ultimate Hunter, so you can get more Stand Uniteds off. But Shen, because of the Balmy Cinder buff as well a couple of patches ago, really nice for him, and he's been strong for pretty much the entirety of Season 12. This will continue for 12.13 as well. Now, beating Shen to number 7 on the countdown is a champion who's going to like the new Divine Sunderer change, this being Wukong. Now, for Wukong in 12.13, no changes mean that in the top lane anyway, you're going to be a very good champion. And you can see that in Diamond and above, from 15,000 matches, Wukong is an S+ tier champion with close to a 52% win rate. So what was the Divine Sunderer change? Well, pretty much we don't even need to think about the numbers here. All you need to know is that against untanky champions, so champions who aren't stacking HP, and guess what? That's going to be 4 out of 5, maybe 5 out of 5 of the enemy team, you will deal more damage to them. It's only if you're playing against champions who will stack HP like nothing else, like Scions and Ornns, so full tank champions, that this is a nerf for. So Wukong, because of this, and even when you get your Divine Sunderer right, lots of top lane champions won't have enough HP to make Divine Sunderer just worse off from what it was before. So the Mythic Spike is better against the squishy champions on the enemy team, so the mid laner, the AD carry, the support, and in team fights once you get your Cyclone going, you are going to shred them with Divine Sunderer and your Q max as well. So Wukong is another champion to consider in terms of being the best top laner. He comes in at number 7, but he is beaten to number 6 by a champion who we mentioned in yesterday's video in terms of being low-key broken, this being Tryndamere. So Tryndamere, we're back to the ultimate sustained setup, and you can see that in Master and above, from 4,500 matches, a 52, well, at least a 52% win rate, goes to show how good he is. And Tryndamere, by the way, does have some pretty annoying matchups. So Darius, so Jax, so Poppy. Since you can see as well, he has a few counters he has to deal with. So the fact that he's got so many counter picks, but he still has a really good win rate, it just highlights how strong he is because of the bust a couple of patches ago. So in terms of your Q sustain and your ultimates cooldown, it means that Tryndamere is really back in business. Just remember, as far as your runes go, you're running second wind, maxing your Q and starting D-shield, because we're about out-sustaining the enemy top laner. No one does it as well as Tryndamere, so he has to be in consideration consideration as well. I would just be a little careful picking him if you see a Jax or a Darius already locked in on the enemy team. Now, starting off the top 5, we're talking about a champion just like Wukong who's going to love the new Divine Sunderer, this being Camille. Because really for Camille as well, because you have true damage from your Q2, your Precision Protocol, it's not like you need the tank or HP shred as much as other champions. So for Camille, Divine Sunderer doing more damage to squishy champions, you're legit going to do like more than half their HP, I swear. Once you get Divine Sunderer and you Q2 someone on the enemy team who is a squishy champion, you are going to blow them up and one-shot them. And you can see that in over 46,000 matches for Camille to have a 51% win rate, an S-tier champion, and she is kind of difficult to play. Like, you do have to know the matchups, you have to be careful of cooldowns because your cooldowns, unlike some other top laners, are actually pretty long, especially your W and your E, and you really have to play around your passive as well. So one tip just for playing Camille, with your passive, try to look at that cooldown when you do engage onto the enemy top laner and when you're running Grass of the Undying, try to go in with these two cooldowns available to you. This is going to help your trading during the laning phase because what we want to do is get to our mythic spike without being too behind, and then we're going to outscale pretty much everyone. So Camille is another champion to consider for 12-13, just like the number 4 champion, this being Jax, another Divine Sunderer abuser, and just like Camille, you don't have to worry as much as other top laners might have to about Divine Sunderer being less good against tanky champions. Now why is this? Well, Jax, you can actually go Blade of the Rune King if you need the tank shred, and because you have so much DPS anyway, you will pretty much outtrade anyone at your mythic spike, especially once you get 5 points into your Empower, into your W. This will deal so much damage to any enemy champion in the top lane. And from these stats in Master and above, in over 2,000 games, a 52.25% win rate, S+ tier champion, and this patch nothing is really changing for Jax. I mean, I guess Divine Sunderer, but in terms of Jax innately, so maybe he's getting buffed or nerfed, nothing changes. So he's still going to be an incredibly powerful champion. Just be sure if you are playing Jax to always consider going Frozen Heart after your Divine Sunderer and Lucidity boots or Steel Caps, Merc Treads, whatever boots you're buying, think about Frozen Heart. And you're not really getting Frozen Heart because of the passive where it slows the enemy's attack speed. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is very useful because lots of top laners will run an attack speed shard in their minor runes, and it's also useful against the enemy jungler and AD carry if you want to team fight. But you're really getting it for the ability haste and also the armor. Most champions you play against in the top lane will be attack damage based. Frozen Heart completely cucks them. And it goes without saying that if you're against an AP top laner like a Mordekaiser who we have mentioned, Frozen Heart probably doesn't do anything. So going items like more Malmortius, Death Stance, these are going to be more useful against those AP top laners. But anyway, Jax, number 4 on the countdown, but he is beaten to number 3 by Gnar. Now, Gnar across the board is like an A-tier champion. He's not the best, according to the stats, but in Master and above, just look at this for me, an S+ tier champion, and he's one of those pick and ban champions at the moment in pro play because he is unbeatable in this top lane. Now, I know you're going to tell me to look at the toughest matchups here. Yes, there are matchups that beat Gnar, but even if you lose lane on this champion, you have so much power in team fights as well, because the meta too is revolving around tankier champions and durability, because in the top lane, tankier champions are becoming more popular, especially since Barmy Cinder got buffed and all the tank mythics got more HP, because Gnar does so well against all of these champions in lane, like he crushes them, and he probably even does better in team fights because of his Mega Gnar. He is an incredibly powerful pick at the moment, but yes, it might be a little risky blind picking him in solo queue because you might run into things. But regardless of all the hard matchups you have for Gnar, he is just such an innately broken champion at the moment that he has to be in the top 3. Now, speaking of broken champions, coming in at number 2 on the countdown, we have the ultimate low elo stomper, this being Garen. And this one is taken from all ranks, of course, because in over 1.25 million matches, Garen has over a 52% win rate, S+ tier champion, and he's picked quite a lot as well, with over an 8% pick rate. Now, why is Garen so good? Well, if we think about it, Garen, with his true damage, a bit like Camille, is going to froth the extra HP. The true damage you deal from your ultimate, it is going to destroy every champion you come up against in the top lane. And just remember that true damage is going to scale off the opponent's missing HP, and because these days they'll be missing more HP, because there is more HP in the game, your Demacian Justice is going to rain hell. So Garen with an Emax with Conqueror, Conditioning, and Overgrowth for the scaling, this gives you insane champion. Just make sure if you're playing him to run Flash and Ignite, because the kill threat, the kill pressure you have, especially if the enemy top laner stuffs up, you can capitalize on their mistakes as quick as anyone. Just be sure to take Berserker Screws as your boots, because we want to enhance our judgment, our E, as much as possible to turn us into the ultimate Beyblade. So Garen is number 2, but he is beaten to the number 1 position for another patch by the ultimate top lane durability champion, this being Darius. And I don't think anyone is going to be really surprised at this, because in 12-13, nothing is changing for Darius. Divine Sunderer might be better for champions like Jax, Camille, who we've talked about, Wukong, and Wukong is actually a very bad matchup for Darius. But regardless, Darius is so innately strong, kind of like Gnar. It doesn't matter what happens to the other champions in the top lane, Darius is still the king. And you can see that in Platinum and above, 220,000 matches, 51.7% win rate, that is unreal. And why is Darius so good? Well, the reason Darius is so good is just because of the durability meta. Champions being tankier, think about Darius, why would he love that so much. His hemorrhage stacking, the conqueror stacking, the low W cooldown, extended fights, that is what he lives for. Just be sure though, if you are playing against Darius, it's all about trying to dodge and evade the outer part of his Q, so your spacing is really important. And if you have a dash like Wukong, that's why dash champions like Wukong, maybe Shen, they do so well into Darius, but also his E, the cooldown is very long and the mana cost is pretty high. So if you can try to bait Darius into using these cooldowns a lot, he will run That's how you beat him. But smart Darius players, if they just hold on to their stuff, it's very, very difficult to bring down, and this is why Darius's ban rate is one of the highest, if not the highest out of all the top laners, but he is, for another patch, the #1 top laner. So watch out for Darius, guys, for another 2 weeks, and the rest of these champions as well. All of them are very strong. So any questions, any comments on the video, on the selections, let us know in the comment section. And if you did enjoy the video, please remember to leave a like down below. And until tomorrow's daily season 12 upload, this has been Coach. Peace.